Mike Downer, and I'm here with Ryan Johnson. He is the owner, CEO, and I think probably the chief maintenance officer at Right Roofing, Siding, and Windows. How you doing today, Ryan?
Yeah, chief everything at some point. Yeah.
Chief everything officer. Exactly. So last time you told us a little bit about your company. Been in business for close to 30 years now. Um, but the big question I think that a lot of people is on a lot of people's minds, and it is on mine when I got my roof done years ago. Um, so why do roofs fail sooner than they should? I mean, people go out and get these new roofs and then they fail. What are why why does that happen?
There's it's a lot of reasons. Like if you asked me that 20 years ago, I think I'd probably have a different answer for you.
Okay.
Um, Most of it just comes down to pretty basic installation methods. Some of the biggest issues that we have right now is there's no oversight. There's no quality control. A lot of these companies that have come up in the last 5 years are more of just a marketing company.
Okay.
Labor has been easy to find. So you have a lot of people starting these roofing companies and they're trusting that that crew that they found from wherever they found actually knows what they're doing. Right. So it's typically going to be that installation that's going to is why that roof is going to fail. It's not going to be a manufacturer thing. It's not going to be because that product was failing or anything like that. It's going to be because that basic installation was never done properly from the get go. Um, that's one of the reasons why we do, a lot of reasons why a roof will fail is because you have improper ventilation. That's why when we're doing a roof, we're jumping in your attic. We're checking out your attic space. We're going to take a look. We're going to make sure that your bath exhaust fans are vented to the exterior like they're supposed to be. You know, it's very simple issues. Um, and if they're done properly, they're going to be pretty bulletproof from you no matter what product or anything that's going to be used.
So why do some roofs look perfectly fine in the beginning, but then start to fail? I mean, you're kind of getting into a few of the issues. Maybe give us a few more examples of why they fail, even though they look great.
Yeah. So I'd say one of our most common issues is just like a pipe flashing will fail, right? Well, those
Okay.
things, depending on the level of pipe flashing that you used, at about 10 to 12 years, they're going to fail. So when you get a hungry roofer that's knocking on your door and you're like, yeah, I've got a leak here. And he goes up there and he tells you that your roof is shot, I'm like, well, is your roof really shot? Or do you just need to replace a $15 rubber gasket, you know, that's going to get another 10 to 15 years out of that pipe flashing and then your leak goes away. Um, so that's part of it. The next part of it is just going to be the willingness to dive into the flashing points. A
Yep.
lot of times guys won't replace those flashings for you or the return wall flashings, which I know nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about.
Right.
But it's how stuff ties in. And if that flashing isn't replaced, there could be a hole in it. It could be a little pesky issue, and it can take a few years before that thing's going to actually show up on your drywall as a brown spot.
Yeah, it makes
Um,
sense.
yeah.
So what are some of the most common installation shortcuts that you've seen that lead to long-term problems as far as siding and roofing and windows, all that? What are some of the shortcuts, the most common ones that you've seen other companies take?
Most common one is going to be the flashing is not being replaced,
Okay.
and along with improper ventilation. You wouldn't believe the amount of builders that are popping up these new houses. And probably about 10 years ago, we had a lot of those hip style roofs,
Yep.
right? So they don't have big gables or peaks on them. They're all a hip style roof. And then everybody thinks that ridge vent's the best way to go. Well, that's the new product and we need ridge vent. Well, you only have room to put about 4 foot of that. And they don't understand that you'd think that a new builder would understand how important ventilation is,
Yeah.
but they don't, you know? And so you've got 4 foot of ventilation, and then you get about 8 to 10 years in your house. Your house is kind of wet when they put it together. Um, and then, well, they start to get a little bit moisture issues, and we got these brown spots on our ceiling, and it happens every year when it's cold for in January, and then it thaws out, and you're getting condensation in your attic, and basically your house is kind of rotting from the inside out. That is probably the most common issue that we see is improper ventilation. And it's very easy to take care of. You just got to be willing to actually take care of it and go with maybe something that is a little bit not as common, what everybody else is doing. And what we've noticed when everybody's doing it doesn't mean that that's the right way to do it.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So even though, can you tell me like why roofs, even with high quality materials, still fail early? Even though somebody used the best of the best, why would they fail early, and what went wrong during installation, or is it installation that even with high quality materials that they fail?
Yeah. So let, let me tell you a story, right?
I'd
So
love to hear one.
I'm going to tell you a little story, and I've told this before, but there was this roof that I kept my eyes on for years. And it was, and I'm not bagging on manufacturers, but it was an old Certainty roof. And I think all the manufacturers have had some sort of manufacturer issue, and they
Sure.
had some problems with their shingles. Well, it was pretty common that these shingles would kind of start to disintegrate on your roof. I mean, most people don't look at roofs like I do, but I drive by and I'd be like, man, that thing is curling. That thing looks rough. I
Yep.
I I kept an eye on this roof for about 10 years. It was up in Johnston, and I'm driving by this house going, "Man, someday I hope they call me because I wanna see what's actually going on under that roofing system." So, lo and behold, they ended up calling us, right? And I'm like, just like licking my chops, like, "Oh, man, I hope we get this job. I wanna see what's going on, see how much rotten plywood we got, see what issues." Well, they left that roof on there for it was probably 10 years longer than they should, right?
Okay.
Here's the one thing that we learned when we tore that roof off. We did not have to replace one piece of plywood. And the reason why is because even though that initial part of that roofing system, and a roof goes together as a system, you got
Okay.
multiple different parts that got to be talking properly with each other. Everything underneath that crappy looking roof was perfect. Every The underlayment was perfect. How it tied in with the metal edge that we put on the roof down into the gutter, that underlayment was perfect. Every piece of flashing that we had to tie in, whether it was a pipe flashing, a penetration, or it was a return wall flashing, was done absolutely perfectly. So that told me that that installation and how that thing goes together is the most important thing that we're doing. It's not just that top side of what you see, but it's
Right.
all the little details that are going on underneath that thing. Because if those things weren't done, that you would have had a problem with that roof 10 years, 10 to 15 years sooner than it did. So it's the stuff that you can't see, that's really important. And that's kind of a differentiator because we actually do quality control on every roof that we do. Every
Right.
siding project that we do, we actually have quality control. We have a checklist just like a pilot does,
Yep.
right? Hey, this has got to be done, this has got to be done, or we fall out of the sky. You know what I mean? And we go
Yep.
about how we're putting together that roofing system the exact same way. We have a checklist that we follow, a before and an after checklist of every one of those details that we know is important is getting done.
Perfect. So how do like poor flashing and roof to wall transition mistakes cause hidden leaks and premature failure?
Um, just so usually it's the flashing's got to go down. The manufacturers have exact ways that they want to do that. It's got to be step flashed. So
Okay.
back in the day, the framer would put down the flat flashing for the roofers. Well, they always did it wrong, right? So when you're on new construction sites, you're always fighting with the framer going, "Hey,
I bet.
this isn't going to work." Um, and then it's also going to be how that cider ties into that flashing. It's got to be house wraps, got to be on top of it. We want to tape that transition area for your driving type of rain. It's very simple. But if you're not watching those and it's going in between every single shingle, that step flashing that's going on, and your inside corner or your outside corner isn't done perfectly according to the manufacturer, that's when you're going to have problems.
Can you give us an example of maybe a house that you've done where you've done some tear offs and you've um, seen something like that happen where the flashing wasn't installed properly, and kind of what the consequences were to the homeowner? So any example anywhere in your 30 years of
Yeah.
repertoire.
Yep. So, gosh, that's almost every problem incident that we run into is is like 50% of them are going to be just the flashing is simply done wrong. We had some customers that probably, had called like 5 or 6 different roofers to figure it out. Nobody was actually willing to dig into the flashing. They just used caulking or whatever else. But until we actually started pulling off siding or cutting out siding, those problems weren't going to go away for them. And you'll have people that'll be like, "Hey, we've been dealing with that problem for like the last 7 years, and nobody could figure it out." And I'll be like, "Well, did anybody pull apart your siding here to make sure and actually replace the flashing?" And if they never did, and so the problem was actually never solved. So it's pretty common, and the reason why guys don't pull it off is because it's an extra step. It's more difficult to do. You need another trade. You need a skilled guy that can actually deal with that siding and get it back together right for you as well. And most roofers are just kind of worried about their system. You know what I mean? It's not a problem with that, and we can't see it, so it's not our problem.
So what are the consequences of the homeowner, whether it be financially, structurally, if it's not done properly? Kind of just, I know there's a lot of them, but what are some of the biggest consequences to the homeowner?
Me as a homeowner, it's probably less about the financial part of it. It's going to cost you money. It's the constant headache. It's like,
Mhm.
"Hey, honey, that's leaking again." You know what I mean? "Oh, I thought we had that fixed. We already paid somebody to do that." Call them back and they don't know. It's just the headache and the time suck of just not having that problem solved. We understand that customers, they just want that problem solved. It's not even after you're dealing with a problem for 5 to 7 years, it's not about the money. I want
I
it to go
I
away,
I
you know?
I understand that. I'm sure that you've probably seen a couple homeowners that you're the 3rd guy that came out here and went, "This could have been solved from guy 1 if he would have just taken his time and done the right thing."
Oh, yeah, we've seen on, the funniest thing we see is probably you got vinyl siding. Caulking on vinyl siding does nothing, but when people don't know, they pull out a caulking gun, right? Well, we'll be there and we'll
Funny.
right? So we'll be there and we'll be like, "Well, there's 12 different colors of caulking." You know what I mean? On this area. That means that there's been 12 guys in there that didn't know what was wrong, and they're like, "Well, it's not this, so it has to be this, so I'm just gonna add my another color of caulking, and maybe the color is gonna help it." You know what I mean? And I'm like, "Has anybody actually just torn off your siding and see what's going on underneath it?" And nope, and that's typically the issue, and we'll pull it off, and we'll solve their problem and eliminate their headaches.
That's it sounds really important. So, real quick question: do you have any like cool projects that you got going right now, or um, something that you got going that you're kind of proud
I
of, or
I'd probably have to dig into the file. We always kinda got some fun stuff going on. I know we have one that we're waiting to do here this spring, and it's probably a 1970s house that somebody's
ooh,
prepared, and they've just got old siding on it. They're getting new windows, they're getting new roofing, and we're basically getting it to come in, and we're gonna basically able to rejuvenate that house from the ground up. It's a pretty common thing that we do, but I just know that it's gonna be such a huge difference on how that house looks and how that feels for that customer. So we're looking forward to that. Now that the weather's better, I think we're getting ready to dig into that one, and it's going to be an awesome project.
that's amazing. I'd like to see some before and after pictures of that because those 70s houses, boy, you put a modern look on it, and I tell you what, you're gonna make that homeowner really happy. So I'm thinking that if anybody's got a leak, if they're looking up and they see the curls on their roof, if they're looking at their siding, if their windows are a little drafty, I think they should make the right decision, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, good deal.
Take
So,
advantage of us. Even if it's just for our knowledge, just take advantage because we can steer you in the right direction and try to do what's going to make sense for them.
well, and it is refreshing, Ryan, talking to you because, like you were saying, all these people that kind of try and band-aid problems when actually you need a tourniquet. Um,
Mhm.
and then the other way around, what is very refreshing is the story you told in the beginning when you might only need a band-aid and they're trying to sell you a complete, open heart surgery.
Yep.
And your honesty is very refreshing. And I know that like when hailstorms come through, um, you got your guys from Texas coming up here trying to or wherever, or coming in from they're like cockroaches. They come out of the woodwork when you see a swarm. Um, so a little bit, you've been in the Des Moines area for 30 years. You're
Correct.
not going anywhere.
Nope.
So, we really appreciate, all the time and dedication that you put into this. We're gonna get into some more problems here in the next episode, but, you've cleared up a lot of questions that people have about their roofs and how to get it done right the first time.
Yeah, that's right. We're here
All
for you.
right. All right, Ryan. Well, thank you so much for everything, and, we'll talk again very soon.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
All right, take care.
Yep. Bye.